Hello everybody, welcome back. So today's video is basically going to be on my journey on how I bred Discus. This is not going to be your normal how to breed Discus video. So I'm going to share my mistakes I made, I'm going to give you the solutions, and I'm going to share some things I learned through this entire learning curve I had to go through. Because let's be honest here, Discus breeding is just not for everyone. Before we start this video, I would just like to give special thanks to Petrus from Discus King SA. He has helped me through this entire process of breeding Discus and shared some of his knowledge. So I'll share his link to his YouTube page as well as his WhatsApp group, so please go support him. This journey started off with 2 melon Discus. They were bred here in South Africa, but the parents were not from South Africa, so remember this part for later in the video. Not long after we got the 2 melon Discus, our Discus population grew from 2 Discus all the way to 9. This included a melon pair, a blue-faced red cover pair, a yellow Turk and 2 blue Turks. So remember when I said with those 2 smaller Discus we got the first time, they were from one country. These new Discus were from an entirely new country, and this was the first mistake I made. I mixed them together. By mixing them together, you get cross-contamination. Basically, what cross-contamination means is a Discus grows a certain immune system against bacteria in one country, but that doesn't mean that Discus from another country grows the same immune system against the same bacteria. Therefore, putting them together in one tank exposes them to the other country's bacteria, therefore cross-contaminating them and killing your Discus. Within a week of introducing these Discus to each other, we can see that the blue-faced red cover female got these weird white marks all over her body. Her fins were clamped, she was sitting in a corner at the top of the tank. The first thing I did is I tested the water. The water tested perfectly fine for Discus. So then I messaged Petrus from Discus King SA and I asked him what is wrong, and he told me Metro. That's all he said, Metro. So Metro is Metroplex from Seachem. That's what I used. I mean, there's a lot of other medication you can use, but I used Seachem's Metroplex, and I bind it with focus with food, so the fish can digest the medication easier and without the medication dissolving into the water column. The blue-faced red cover female recovered and she looked healthy. Then I started doing some research and I found out that the best food you can give Discus is homemade food. Now there's a lot of recipes you can go and follow on the internet, but if I'm being honest, I just don't have the time to go and make the food. So I contacted Petrus and asked, does he make food? And he said yes. So I went and I bought some Discus food that is homemade, high in protein, has prebiotics and probiotics. So it's the best food you can get for your Discus. Not long after I started feeding this food, I saw that the 1 melon male and the red cover female started to pair off. My first instinct was remove them, put them in a separate tank, put a spawning cone in, and let's see if we can get some eggs. After 2 weeks of this pair being separated into their own tank, finally we had eggs. I was extremely happy and I thought, here the Discus breeding starts, but this victory was short-lived. Although the male and the female took their turns fanning the eggs, it's almost as if overnight all of these eggs turned white, and I couldn't understand why. Why do these eggs turn white? And again I turned to Petrus from Discus King SA and I asked him what could be wrong, and he told me to test the TDS of my water. So I took out my TDS pen and I tested the water, and it showed 128 ppm. For tap water, this is not bad, but for discus breeding, not so much. So the next step was to get an RO unit. I went and I bought a second-hand RO unit and I gave it a Longfin Aqua makeover. So for the next week, I did a 20% water change in the mornings and in the evenings. Lo and behold, 8 days later, we have eggs again. Within the first 24 hours, there were a few white eggs, but that didn't bother me because it looked way much better than the first time. After 48 hours, all the eggs turned white. Now this happened 3 times. They spawned 3 times where the eggs turned white. Not a single fry hatched. And to be honest, I was down in the dumps because discus breeding, why is it so hard? So in between these spawns, I did some problem solving. I corrected every single thing that could be wrong. My water parameters were perfect. The food, perfect. pH, perfect. Everything was perfect to my knowledge. So then, yet again, I turned to Discus King and I asked him what could be wrong. And he mentioned the electrical conductivity of my water. So I tested the electrical conductivity of my water and it came out at a value of 96. So the reason this is a problem is he mentioned he breeds his discus on an EC of below 80. I tested my RO unit's EC and it came out on a value of 10. So I dropped my EC on the breeding tank by doing frequent water changes yet again in the mornings and in the evenings. So how did we figure out it was the EC? Well, I took a photo of the eggs and as you can see on the screen, those white tips on the eggs is an indication that the eggs want to hatch before it's time for them to hatch. And 11 days later we had eggs, and this was the last straw. It was either it hatched or I'm just not fit to breed discus. I actually had some success. Yes, most of them turned white, but I had 11 fry. So by this time I was a pro at hatching BBS. This was my 6th, maybe 7th time of hatching BBS just to feed discus fry, but this time I actually got to feed the fry. I fed them every single second I got, as much a day as I possibly could. If I fed them 5 times a day, I did. If I fed them 7 times a day, I did. I fed them as much as I possibly could. And after 25 days, I moved them into their own tank by acclimating them slowly. And I did this by drip acclimation. But this was another issue. Leaving fry too long with parents exposes them to illnesses the parents may carry. And I do not mean an illness as in the discus pair will die. I mean, on day 14, your fry starts developing its gills and then it absorbs anything that might be in the water. So this includes bacteria, diseases, parasites, whatever, it can pick it up. So therefore, removing your fry between day 10 and 14 is the ideal time. It prevents them from picking up anything from the parents. And that was the mistake I made. So a few days after removing the fry, the pair laid another batch. This was another chance for me to get a massive amount of fry. And lo and behold, I actually did. I succeeded in getting a nice batch of fry of over 30 fry. And I was ecstatic about this. So fast forward a few weeks and the discus are growing absolutely amazing. And I didn't film this part but the second batch I got, I completely lost. Yet again, I told you guys the best time to remove the fry is between day 10 and 14. So what happened is I picked up gill flukes. Gill flukes for discus, if you don't have the correct medication, it's over and done with. So I lost my second batch entirely, but I got a third batch, and as I'm making this video now, that third batch is doing amazing. I moved them away from the parents, making sure I correct my mistakes, and they are doing absolutely amazing. That first batch we got 11 fry, but at the end of the day we only left with 4. So this was a struggle for me. This was the first time I ever struggled breeding a fish this much, but I conquered it, and I'm here to tell you, you can also do it. So learn from my mistakes so you don't have to make them. So as we end this video, I would like to give you a few things that I think every discus keeper or breeder should need in their fish room. And first off, this is a high quality food. May it be homemade food or store-bought food, as long as it's high quality. The next thing is BBS. You can never go wrong with hatching too much BBS. If you hatch too much BBS, freeze it, take it out of the freezer and use it as you need it. And then second, get yourself some all-round medication. I use Seachem Metroplex and Seachem Polyguard, and I bind it with Focus, so the fish can accept the medication easier and the medication isn't lost in your water column. So in return, you actually save your medication and you don't waste it into your water column. And then the last thing is clean equipment. Do not mix equipment from one tank into another tank. Keep everything clean. If you need to use the same net, run it under some boiling water, or place it into some RODI water or anything just to sterilize that equipment, because it prevents the transfer of any bacteria and anything that might make your discus sick. So thank you guys for watching, and remember, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, comment if you want to, and remember to go follow Discus King SA, because he's helped me an awful lot with this video and how to breed discus over these past few months.